welcome to Star Wars Spelt Out. I'm your host, Josh Chapman, and today I'm dragging myself off the floor. I'm picking myself off the canvas because I really wanted to record this episode. And we're here to talk about a very specific subject. And when we talk this specific subject, we get friend of the show, probably our most regular contributor from that Geek pod. It's Catherine Kneen. How you doing, Catherine?
I'm going pretty well. Yes. Yeah, so, well, much better than you. So, by the sounds of it.
I'm on the Lemsip Maxes, which are like I don't know, it's not exactly hardcore medication, but for colds, it's basically one of the hardest off-the-shelf things you can get to try and pull me through here, because I was very sick this afternoon, but I really wanted to record. And Catherine has given up her. It's like Super Bowl Sunday at Catherine's house tonight, and she's graciously kept it on hold. What's on tonight, Catherine, for everybody listening?
Premiere of Australian Survivor, so hour and a half.
Right, so we're going to get in, we're going to get out, we're going to talk some Star Wars. And I did make the joke before, because Catherine's obviously recording it, saying, hey, look, when you sit down, you'll just be able to fast forward through all the ads, and it'll be a better viewing experience anyway.
Yeah, you can't do it with ads. You can't do it. I can't do ads anymore.
No, there's always like two things that are on commercial television that you have to sit through. You're like, is this what it's like? Is that what's going on in commercial television still?
No, I sort of end up watching everything on basically 15 minutes later, just so I can fast forward through the ads, and by the end I'm pretty much caught up.
Well, you'll be a little bit behind on this, I think, if we sort of go for our standard sort of 45, 50 minutes here, but we'll see how we go. I'm assuming the phone's off, all the spoilers are kept out.
Yep, off the Twitter for a little while.
Off the Twitter, oh my goodness. Now, the reason I got you on is, actually, you know what, before we do that, before we're going to sidetrack, I'm going to take a little sidestep here. And I don't want to encroach too much on your podcast, that Geek Pod, but Comic-Con, what was your overall thoughts on Comic-Con, which just dropped?
Kevin Feige just announced everything. Like, there's nothing left to announce.
Strutting around like he's Mick Jagger or something, wasn't he? You know, it's crazy that what did he announce, like 10 things maybe?
I think it was 10. It could be more. Who knows? It's one of those things of, if you list them, I'm sure you forget something. Like, it's just insane, the amount that was just casually dropped. I
know. I think a lot of it was sort of, rumoured about or spoken about a little bit, but then, new Thor and Natalie Portman coming back, Amidala herself. So
yeah, that was a surprise, that one.
Have you seen Annihilation on Netflix?
No, I've been meaning to.
Natalie Portman and Oscar Isaac. Yeah, we were just the other night. We just sort of now we're in a post Stranger Things world at our house. It's like, what do we watch? What's on? And I was just sort of flicking through, and Annihilation came up. Like, I heard that's pretty good. We'll sit through that. And it was good. It was interesting. It was pretty sci-fi out there. But she's lugging around a great big machine gun and stuff. So I think she can handle the hammer without too much trouble.
Yeah, I think she can do it.
Did you want her to get like absolutely ripped, like massive Chris Hemsworth arms, or?
I can't imagine that. She was pretty muscular doing Black Swan.
That's true, yeah.
It's a different type of muscular, but still.
Yeah, she's not a huge person either, so I guess there's only so much you can realistically do. It'd be just weird if they just gave her like huge CG Chris Hemsworth arms, so she's just like really, petite everywhere else with these humongous Chris Hemsworth arms that are just sort of flapping around, and she can't stand up straight, and she's kind of wobbling from side to side. Or, that's why I'm not in charge of Marvel, basically.
Yeah.
So a lot of the stuff that sort of came out of that, there's a lot of people going, check it out, Star Wars, this is how you announce stuff, this is how you do it, dropping all this stuff. Like, do you sort of subscribe to that for Star Wars? You're like, hey man, I want my stuff carefully.
Yeah, carefully in some ways. I just felt like they've dropped so much. There's nothing left to announce, and we're just swimming in so much info that it's overload. You can't really process anything, and you can't really enjoy things. So it really took me a couple of days to really process that Angelina Jolie is going to be in the Eternals.
A Marvel movie, yeah.
and all these other things, it's too much in a way. Like,
It's
I
a
know
lot,
that
isn't it? It's like being at the all you can eat and just stuffing your face. But it's too much. You're like,
all you can
yeah, I was gonna say you're like Homer at the Fisherman's Pete or whatever it is. And you just and they drag you away. And you run back for more, and you're just trying to stuff your face like no, no. But because even when he was like done, he's like, oh, by the way, Fantastic Four and Mutants and Guardians of the Galaxy, because he couldn't help himself. He was just like throwing more seafood at Homer, going, come on, like have some more.
So I think it's, for the next 5 to 10 years or something that he announced, or maybe not 10
I think
years,
it's like
5 years.
No, I have a feeling it's like 2 years. I have a feeling it's like 2020 and 2021. Like, I think that's all there is. I think there's like 5 movies and 3 TV shows, or 6 movies and 4 TV shows or something. Like, I honestly think this is like literally in 2 years' time, he's going to be up on that podium and going, here's the next 10 things that we're doing after this. Like, I mean, they're on a roll. There's absolutely no reason not to do it now. They've got the streaming stuff. But in the case of something like Cassian, which was just like a press release that came out, like StarWars.com was like, hey, we're doing this Cassian thing, should be good.
Yeah.
Like, would you have preferred it? I mean, I know we were at Celebration. It depends on the dates and stuff, but you kind of feel like, get KK up on a panel somewhere and drop a bit of Cassian, wheel out your boy Diego and get him to announce he's doing. Do you feel like they've missed a trick? That they're not? It's weird because it's kind of the same. I mean, obviously it's all Disney, so they've kind of got their way, and Star Wars has their way.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think definitely announcing it in some big way to get the big publicity and pump it, because the conference call that announced Cassian was, I mean, it was great, but it was kind of out of the blue and nowhere, and a bit sad that, oh, this is how we find out about things. And I'm hoping at D23 we get an announcement of some kind, seeing as Star Wars basically had nothing at Comic-Con.
Yep.
Apart from toy releases. So
do you think they're a little spooked by Solo, where they're kind of like, hey, we just want all to be Rise of Skywalker. We don't want to announce another thing to distract. But then, like, obviously Mandalorian, nobody's seen the footage that we saw at Celebration yet. And that's out in like 3 months. Yeah,
I feel really bad that no one else has seen the Mandalorian
footage. The thing is, they'll see it. They'll get to see the show probably before they get to see the footage. It'll just be on Disney Plus. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But
I guess, doing something at D23 for Mandalorian makes sense to sort of launch the streaming platform, as it were. I'm still hoping for an announcement of how the rest of the world's going to get that content, but
yeah, there were some articles kind of flying around a little bit about Disney Plus in Australia, weren't they? That they'd sort of bought the domain name here and registered a business and stuff, but they're kind of going, look, it's still looking like Stan. My money still it's going to be on Stan, which is a streaming service here, not just some guy called Stan walking around with a TV. going, Mandalorian's going to be on Stan. Stan's going to be over there holding a flat screen above his head, and you can watch it at his house.
Standing outside the window.
Standing.
That would be awesome if they had some kind of partnership. And I saw today that actually Foxtel and Netflix are partnering, in that the Foxtel iQ3 and iQ4 are going to offer, ways to watch Netflix, like basically through their app or something, or through their box.
Interesting. Do you get a discount? Because I've got both. If I got some sort of sweet package deal, I'd consider that. But I don't know. Foxtel. I always threaten to walk away from Foxtel, but then it's like, oh, it's football season. I can't walk away. They've got the sport. And, yeah.
I nearly walked away last week. Well,
that's the trick, isn't it? That's how you get the sweet deals, if you threaten to walk away, isn't it?
By threatening to walk away, they waived the $75 fee they were going to charge me to replace a faulty box.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I guess the process is just try it on, see if they go for it. Some people just like, all right, I suppose if that's what it is, that's what it is, and then just walk away. So I don't know. I feel like I don't want as much Star Wars. I don't need 10 Star Wars properties coming out in 2 years, personally.
No. No, it's too much.
It's too much. Like, everybody sort of went, oh, Solo's come up pretty quick, and that was, we're going to have Resistance and Rise of Skywalker, and then it's going to be pretty quiet. Obviously, we're going to have Mandalorian and Cassian and stuff. So there's still a few sort of things going on. But, yeah, maybe they just need to work on their announcement stuff a little bit better.
Yeah, I don't need to know, 10 projects, but it would be good to sort of know something that's happening afterwards to confirm another Star Wars show on Disney Plus, or to even give some of kind of hints about, well, what's the next movies or something, because I'm a patient Star Wars fan, but even still it sort of seems like we've had no news for months on end. And
well, even like Celebration, nothing was announced at Celebration, was it? I mean,
No.
we already knew Rise of Skywalker was coming. I mean, all the talk was, will they announce Obi-Wan? We knew Cassian was coming. We knew Mandalorian was coming, but they didn't announce anything. I mean, it's funny because I guess, Marvel are kind of like the noisy neighbors. They're like sort of they're kind of doing it their way and it's very successful, but nobody else does it. It's not like it's just Star Wars that don't do it that way. It's like everybody doesn't do it that way. Everybody else just announces stuff in the trades, I guess, like Star Wars does.
Yeah. Marvel, especially this last weekend, just went nuts. And those red strings on the whiteboard and on the corkboard with all the different franchises and properties just must be going nuts.
Yeah, they're just like Charlie, that gif of Charlie from Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where he's got all the things, he's going crazy. But they seem to have a plan, and good on them. They've earned it. They're the biggest film in the world now of all time with Avengers and stuff. And I think I made a joke the other day that James Cameron put out that little message saying congratulations, but you could just tell he's not happy about it. He is annoyed.
Yeah, he thinks he's going to get it back with Avatar too, but no.
I don't know. I don't know about that. We'll see. Like, who knows? People doubted him on Titanic. People doubted him on Avatar. He's proven us all wrong before, but I don't know. We'll see. We're living in a different world now. Now, the reason that you've been invited on, not that just because we always like having you on and you're always happy to oblige, is that we had a listener. I think it might have been one of the Shaken Not Nerd boys. Actually, he messaged and said that he was listening to one of the commentary tracks. I think it was the Phantom Menace one that we did for Geek Pod. And he messaged me and he just said, "Oh, look, I'm really enjoying the Phantom Menace Geek Pod, the commentary track, blah 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 blah. What else have you got any other ones that I'd like?" And I said, "Oh, the Solo one's good. I've got my brother-in-law James on. He's really deep on the EU. He's got a bit of insight." And I said, "Oh, and the Rogue One that we did is really good too. Have a listen to that." And I went, "Oh, I haven't actually listened to that since we did it. I should go back and have a listen to that." And I don't know about you. I tend not to listen back to my podcasts, really. But
no.
but, occasionally I do if I really have to. But I thought, I'll pop it in. I'll have a listen. And it was crazy how many times we were watching that going, we need more Cassian. I can't believe we need to know more about this guy. They should do a Young Cassian Adventures show or movie or something. And I think it's like 4 or 5 times. And I think we sort of say it early on in the thing and just keep hammering it back going, this guy's so interesting. Wouldn't it be great to know more about this? And this was recorded definitely before they announced it, because I wouldn't be bringing it up.
Most definitely.
I did check the dates. It's a year or two ago now. And I was just thinking, oh, wow, we were so clever that we picked that up, because it wasn't anything that people were talking about, was it? It wasn't like it was even, because they were talking Mandalorian. It wasn't even talking about doing another show, let alone a Cassian Andor one.
Were they even talking Mandalorian then?
Certainly not then. But I just mean, like, even when they announced Mandalorian, it wasn't like people going, "What's the next show going to be?" They're all like, "Oh, it's going to be Obi-Wan, or it's going to be Knights of the Old Republic, or it's going to be Boba Fett." Like, no one was throwing Cassian up.
No one was. Apart from little old me who loves Cassian Andor.
Yeah, so I think it was part, prophecy, part, vested interest, I think a little bit, Catherine. But anyway, that's okay. So what I thought we'd do is that, we don't know anything about the Cassian show yet. We haven't really been given too much details and things. Is that we'll do a little prediction show. and we can put a little bow on it, and we can put it in the time capsule, and then when we get more information at Celebration Anaheim next year when Diego Luna comes out and you're at the front row, like the Beatles have arrived, like 4 Beatles that all look like Diego Luna are there. And
Oh my
get some
God,
more
like
deets.
seriously, Turbo thought he lost his arm when we thought for a split second that Diego was going to walk out.
Oh, the Alan Tudyk panel.
Yeah, because I lost my little mind. So just beware. I will be screaming and grabbing arms and jumping up and down if Diego comes out.
Yeah, well, it's it was always a long shot at Chicago, but I think we've mentioned on here before that we're locked and loaded for Anaheim. The house is booked, the tickets are bought, we got our passes. We're staying opposite Disneyland in a Disney themed house. Us and Andy from Geek Pod, your co-host, and the Blue Bantha Milk Boys and Turbo again, and probably a few other stragglers who come by. So we're getting ready to load up and do it all again. But yeah, if they make that Diego Luna announcement, it's gonna the anticipation will be high.
Yeah. So that day when the Cassian news dropped, my phone just went nuts with Twitter mentions and notifications.
So that's not a bad way to do it as well. So you were lucky that, like, in that, because we were just talking about going, that was a weird way that they announced it, but you actually kind of got like almost like a personalized. It was almost like Star Wars mailed you directly, just because all of Star Wars Twitter just went and messaged you. Like, you got your own little personal alert on that one. If it had, I guess if you'd been in the room, if they hadn't said anything, but we didn't know anything was coming, and then we were at Celebration and they announced the Cassian one and you're in the room, it obviously would have been a great experience as well. But you were lucky enough to have that little personalized message, so to speak.
Yeah, it was amazing. So a couple of weeks ago, I noticed on Diego's Instagram account,
what's the address for that one?
That they've finished filming Narcos Mexico season 2. So in my mind, I'm like, ooh, does that mean he's
the slate is opening up?
Film Cassian, yes.
Yeah, I guess it's all dates, isn't it? So we don't know. So let's start. This is a good jumping in point, Catherine, as usual. Professional podcast that you are, you find good jumping in points. Dates. Let's just talk general dates. So November is Mandalorian. Favreau has already gone on one of those talk shows and said that he's writing Mandalorian Part 2.
Yep.
Or second season, or whatever you want to do. So if we say realistically there's a year between seasons, and sort of that November area again will probably be when it drops. Maybe, who knows. And when's Celebration? August next year.
Yeah, end of August.
So realistically, when do you think episode 1 of Cassian Andor, the Cassian Andor Adventures, will be dropping on Disney Plus?
See, I think probably that November type of time. Again, so following on from Celebration, which is in August, you think that's a couple of months to really build a lot of the following. They might be filming Mandalorian season 2 by then, so sort of interchange them almost. Yeah,
it'll be interesting to see how often they bring this stuff out, because like Disney's going to have 4 or 5 Marvel shows, and if they're all an episode each, if they're all 10 episodes or something, or 8 episodes, do they just go every week there's a new Marvel or Star Wars thing, so we space them out week by week like that? We do a run and it's the Hawkeye show for 8 weeks, and then it's the Mandalorian season 2 for 8 weeks, and then they just always every week have a new thing, or whether they go, we're dropping this, or do they drop the whole thing at once? We just don't know that, do we? Do you think they'll space it out?
I hope that it's, for each show anyway, that it's a week by week prospect, especially for Star Wars, because I think we get a lot more out of it that way. We get a week to sort of process it and talk about the one episode, a week of everyone being at the same point. So with the other Marvel Netflix shows, I'm actually catching up on them now, because they dropped years ago, but they
so you're doing like Daredevil and Jessica Jones and all those ones.
Yeah, I'm partway through Luke Cage season 1
Oh, yeah.
now. So I find, when they drop 13 episodes at once, I actually find that sort of confronting and a big hill to climb.
Yeah.
Whereas,
I think in the case of this, sorry to interrupt, but
no,
in the
it's
case
all
of
right.
like Star Wars, if they go, we're dropping Mandalorian 10 episodes at once, there's pressure. Because you know that there's going to be
Yeah.
some people who are like, we stayed up all night and we watched it all in a day. We just plowed through and watched the whole thing. And, oh my God, you're not going to believe that this happened. And Boba Fett came back, or Jabba the Hutt couldn't be Jabba the Hutt, he's dead. But you know what I mean? But there's that thing where it's going to be, at least it's an episode to episode. It's, you're in danger of maybe getting spoiled for one episode rather than the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's far easier to manage that one episode at a time. So even talking, like with Survivor or Game of Thrones, you can be off Twitter for a few hours until you catch up to that episode and go spoiler free. And it gives everyone a chance to be at the same point enjoying the same thing, and almost using social media to build, what was in that episode, and to build people coming in and watching it. Whereas you think everyone loved Stranger Things over that weekend, but no one could talk about it.
Yeah, everyone was pretty good on it, actually. I mean, there were people kind of like, oh my God, the ending. But for the most part, people were pretty good, because Game of Thrones, it was like a bloody free-for-all. It was just like people... And I guess because it's on live... I guess because it's a live TV thing and not a streaming. I know some people stream it on HBO, but it's a little bit more like 8:30, it's on. Yeah. Especially this last season, everyone wants to catch it right away. But obviously, us being in Australia, it's sort of... Game of Thrones would be on at sort of 11 in the morning our time, wouldn't it? 11:30 in the morning, and then you're just like, all right, well, that's me off social media for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to have to do my job, unfortunately. But so, are you sort of thinking that November? You think sort of there'll be a big Cassian panel at Anaheim, and we'll get a trailer, and we'll get And if it's that close, if it's a little bit closer, it's going to be 2 or 3 months closer than Mandalorian was. You think they'll show more? That potentially.
That if they show like a trailer or behind the scenes thing, you'd think that they would then release that to the public at that stage. So make
because it's
that
closer,
kind of big deal out. Yeah,
it's an interesting call having it in August, isn't it? I mean, I think it's kind of nice because it gave us time to reset and miss it and all that kind of thing. It didn't feel like, oh my God, it's coming around again at the same time. But it's they've sort of pushed it back to August, I guess, because there's no movie that they don't have to worry about having a trailer earlier on in the year like they did with this. So they kind of frees them up a little bit. But I assume that they've got the big whiteboard Kevin Feige style with all the red strings and things going on. So, all right. So your official preview here is we're saying November 2020. Oh my God, is it 2020 next year?
Look, I went to a 1-year-old birthday party yesterday, or on the weekend, and we had to write a letter that will be opened on their 18th birthday. And then someone did the math of what year that would be, and then someone did the math on how old their eldest child would be then, and it was depressing.
Well, I think you're going to say open a letter on their 80th birthday in the 22nd century. Oh my gosh! And Star Wars will still be going. Marvel will still be doing. They'll have the cryogenic robot. They'll have like Kevin Feige's brain in a jar coming out announcing more Marvel properties. He's like, we're doing it again. We're doing Black Panther 18. I don't know. Anyway. Yeah. Right. So I think that's pretty realistic. I don't know Mandalorian whether they'll go after, or it just depends. But I think this time, given the celebration window, I think that sort of makes sense. I guess the only thing is, will it come earlier in the year because there's nothing on from November to then? So what do they drop? Do they just have Resistance in that window? I guess that's the only other thing. Like, what are they? Yeah, I guess they've got Clone Wars up their sleeve, don't they? So maybe they drop that February, March kind of thing, and that's a few weeks. Yeah, that's very true, actually. Good thinking. You're all over it. Shout out to all the Clone Wars kids out there. You crazy Clone Wars kids. Okay, so we've got release timeline. What do we? How? We'll use Rogue One as year dot. I mean, I know in a lot of Star Wars stuff, New Hope is 0 year, and considering this takes, Rogue One's like a few days before, we can probably just, can be the same thing. So if Rogue One is 0 years, how many years before do you think this is taking place? Do you think it's going to be a few? Do you think we're going to jump forward to young child Cassian getting in scrapes?
I think we'll see maybe a bit of that, but I think the majority will be maybe 5 years before.
Mm-hmm.
Something 5 years before the events of Rogue One. Maybe some, when we see a younger Diego, like, when he was in the fight when he was 6 years old, and a teenage.
You feel like you're going to see the 6 years old, the family, something's going to happen to the family, or you get swept up in it. So you feel like that's how they'd start. It seems like a pretty sure bet, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, to see that background of, I was just reading the visual guide, and they were sort of implying that Cassian's family, all supported the Confederacy, which are the Separatists, and so they were very much against the Republic, and so they fought against that, and then the Republic fell, Empire took over, and the Empire took over their planet, and so they've been fighting the Empire for a long time, and he was sort of being on his own for a long time. That's an interesting
twist, isn't it? That they were actually just the Republic when they were the Republic. They're going, hey, this Count Dooku guy is he's got some good ideas. I like this dude.
Well, when you sort of look at it in the Clone Wars, that they had some valid points, that the Republic...
Oh, you're beginning to sound like a separatist, Catherine.
Yes, their wily ways, but the Republic, the Senate it was very corrupt. I mean, we know this. We saw the Trade Federation, and of course Palpatine exploit all the corruption that was there. Yep,
he could have worked the system pretty good, didn't he? Really?
Yeah.
So I think there'll be sort of a jumping off. There'll be a jumping off sort of flashback to a young Cassian, where he sort of loses it all, finds himself in the fight, and then, like you said, you'll jump forward into him being in the rebellion already, or maybe, I don't know, maybe even on the cusp of joining the rebellion. But I guess 5 years, he's pretty high up in the rebellion as it is. He's sort of like their number one spy, isn't he? Really, I assume. I don't know. We just assume he is.
Well, the other, intelligence officers seem to follow his lead pretty easily. 5 years was just sort of a guess from me. They could go further back and sort of see him joining, but I'd love to see him on missions with some of the other intelligence officers that we saw during the Battle of Scarif. Yeah.
So that was sort of where I was going to sort of get to next. So we'll say about 5 years as a jumping off point. Now I think it's been mentioned plenty of times before, there's a comic that's like a Rogue One spin-off that sort of tells the story of how Cassian met K2SO, and I think it actually in the comic takes place quite close to the events of Rogue One, so I think that they're probably just going to pretend that didn't happen, or they'll just retcon that, which is fine. People can do, it's just a comic, who cares? You can get a little bit of white out and just dab over the top of that and pretend it wasn't there. So maybe he'll meet K2SO in that, and that'll just be something that we see. I mean, that'd be good to see on screen. I'd like to see that.
Yeah, I'd like to see the two of them meeting and to really figure out how K2SO was deprogrammed and their friendship. Because, I mean, when K2SO, he gave his life for Cassian, and it broke everyone's heart.
So it is nice he gets another go around. I mean, it's going to be that weird, obviously prequel series do have that weird thing where you're kind of like, oh, I know how this ends up for everybody, but I think they'll, the characters are strong enough that you'll care about the journey, nonetheless. So let's talk characters. Who are we going to get? Who are we going to see in this thing? Obviously, number one, we are going to see Cassian Andor again. That's a given. We know him. Diego Luna, we'll get, he's a sure thing. Is a sure thing is a sure thing. You can't have the Cassian Andor show without Cassian. That would be weird. Who's not in it.
Don't even put that out into the universe.
I mean, there's a chance that the first episode Diego Luna might not be in if it's all like young Cassian, so that might mess with you a little bit. But for your sake, I hope not, Catherine. But
I just hope that's purely flashbacks. We see Diego and then maybe flashing back, and that's it.
That's enough. Okay, so K2SO, we know for sure. He's a lock. Now this is an interesting one. Princess Leia. Do we see Princess Leia?
Controversial if we do.
Yeah, and if you do, how do you do it? Do you recast young Princess Leia? Do you? I mean, you can easily have her mentioned by name. I think that's pretty easy to do to get away with. Do you footage, creepy CG Princess Leia? Everyone always talks about the Stranger Things girl being Princess Leia. Is it sort of too? I don't know. Does it make any difference that obviously Carrie Fisher's not with us anymore, but she wouldn't have played young Princess Leia anyway. Does it make it harder to do that she's not around, or is it just casting? I mean, they've already done young Han Solo. Is young Princess Leia as sacred, or should she be left alone?
Well, at this stage, she'd be, if we're thinking 5 years before, she's early to mid-teens.
14, 15. I think she's 19,
yeah.
19, 20 in A New Hope.
Yeah.
I think Luke and Leia are 19, 20. Yep.
So it might make things a little bit harder, but there's a lot of pressure there. I mean, would Disney do that again? And how much did Leia interact with the rebels on Yavin, if they were on Yavin at that stage?
I mean, she does pop up in. She did pop up in Star Wars Rebels. That's obviously a bit closer to A New Hope, but she was certainly involved in the rebellion then. People were just like, "Oh yeah, Princess Leia's in it." They got somebody else doing her voice. She's there as a cartoon. I guess it's not quite the same as having somebody on screen doing it, but again, young Han, we all got through young Han without too much trouble. Yeah, I don't know. Does the story really need her? Does the story really? Well, does they really need her? And if it does, you feel like you'd have to recast, don't you? I mean, if it was 10-year-old Princess Leia, would it be okay? Would you be less of a problem?
Only if, say, for whatever reason, they went to Alderaan and we're talking with Bail Organa and we happen to see 10-year-old Leia.
Yep.
I think everyone would be like, okay, fine, tick, but a 10-year-old Leia can't be leading the rebels. It's more when
it's butting up against Carrie Fisher, isn't it? It's more when it's just like you're basically being the Carrie Fisher Leia that we know a little bit. So no easy answers on that one. We'll keep going. I've got a little list here of the characters. I'm going down here. So General Draven, he was one of the rebellion dudes. He was sort of I'm just trying to remember what he did in Rogue One. He was just sort of one of the dudes who stood around with Dodana and Mon Mothma, and he's the guy who sort of like brings in Jyn Erso as like, this is your record and you've been doing this and you've been doing this, and I feel like he's a pretty easy get.
He's the intelligence officer guy, isn't he?
Yeah, I feel like he's a bit of an easy get. He's probably keen to come back to Star Wars. He's not, he's probably happy to come. He's not like a huge movie star or anything, and he's in the rebellion. Kind of makes sense. I think he would be a likely one.
I definitely say yes, because he's also an intelligence officer, and that's where Cassian is working, in intelligence. So I definitely give him a tick. And you're right, he's a British actor who I'll look at and go, I know you've been in stuff. I've seen you in stuff.
Probably like Midsummer Murders or something like that, or
yeah, British actors are in everything. So, but yeah, he definitely would say yes.
Cool. Well, let's lock him in. Now, speaking of, General Dodana feels like another given, really. His character, I think General Dodana got killed off in the comics quite recently in the Star Wars run. I seem to recall they killed him off because obviously he doesn't turn up in Empire Strikes Back. There's some sort of big battle in the comics, like a big space battle, and he doesn't make it out. But yeah, another one similar to the bloke before. Up for it, I reckon.
Yep.
Involved in the
Definitely
running
up
of the
for it.
rebellion. That's one of the things through him.
He's in the day-to-day running and any battles that they might have, and running all the different cells maybe.
Now, here's an interesting one. Admiral Radis.
Yes. So whether he's there 5 years before or not, I'm not sure of.
Depends
but
when
he
they
might
get
show
involved,
up in
don't
their
they?
run. Yeah.
Yep. So maybe there's a whole thing about, hey, we got to get these Mon Cals that join the rebellion. It's kind of weird though, because it'll be interesting how it weaves in if it does it all with Rebels. Because Rebels is a lot of sort of setting up the rebellion and the different cells coming together and them getting kind of organized and doing all this kind of stuff. It'll be curious to see whether they interact in a way like that. Like, this isn't on my list, but would you see like a live action Hera Syndulla or these sort of people that would potentially be around? That would be an interesting sort of twist on things, wouldn't it? Really?
Yeah, because those later seasons of Rebels, they were in and out of Yavin 4 a fair bit, and I remember having a whinge at the time about going, really, they're on Yavin 4 already?
We talk about it on the commentary. We're going, we keep going, they kept missing a trick not putting Cassian in Rebels and crossing over these characters and stuff. And little did we know, I mean, who knows how long they've had these plans for, but they were holding their powder to do it like this. So, yeah, I mean, I didn't even touch on that. But if you saw, like, Chopper was obviously there at they're involved in Rogue One, but if you saw a live action Hera or Kanan or Ezra or all those kind of dudes, I mean, that would blow some people's minds. Imagine if they showed a trailer of that and all of a sudden Hera and the Rebels in live action are just there.
That would be mind-blowing. But I think in some ways it's easier to go from real life to animated than the other way. Especially when you think about, characters like Zeb. That would be hard to put into live action.
But they did that, they remember the mural at Celebration where they had the big picture of all the Star Wars saga mural, the movies and stuff. And they had the Rebels there, but it was like, creepy real life Rebels. Like they drew them as real people.
Oh yeah, and that's right. Thrawn was a bit Pierce Brosnan, wasn't he?
Imagine if they've already all been cast, and they're just like, we literally showed you the Rebels cast who are going to appear in Cassian on that mural, and nobody even noticed it. They were just right there in everybody's face. Ladies and gentlemen, Pierce Brosnan, Admiral Thrawn. Because we literally showed you. You all went, aha! Look at that as real people. That now, tell you what, Kevin Feige, not even he has done something like that. So this is this is why we do these prediction shows, Catherine, because we get these hot takes like this, and we can turn around, at Celebration next year when they bring out the real life Rebels cast.
Called it. We knew it.
We called it. Go back and listen. So, all right, General Radis maybe towards the end, probably not so much at the start. Now, somebody close to your heart who is not Cassian Andor, but is General Merrick, otherwise known as Blue Leader. The man of the moment. Good chance.
What a great moustache. He's just dashing. That's the absolute word for him.
I love that blue X-wing outfit. I think I'm not a cosplayer, but I reckon if I got an option to wear any X-wing outfit, I'd be very tempted to do the old blue. The blue ones. Do you remember seeing any at Celebration? I'm just trying to remember. Did you see any?
Not off the top of my head. Mind you, there wasn't much in the way of Rogue One cosplay. There were, a few Mendos, a couple of Cassians.
You tracked down all those Cassians?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So, yes. Blue Leader, I would say, would be potential. Yep, for sure. Maybe not in all of it, but maybe a specific mission where they bring in Blue Squadron, which would be really cool.
Yeah, I think definitely if they're going to have any X-Wing action, they'll use Blue Squadron because it could be too hard to have Red Squadron or Yellow Squadron.
Oh, yeah, of course, because they've got to dig out that footage again, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, very
so
true.
they'd be pretty limited.
All right, let's move it along because, we'll be here all night. Here's a director, Orson Krennic. Will we get Mendo back? Would he come back? I think he would. I think he got asked.
He would.
He's like, mate, why didn't you ask me to come back and be bloody Krennic again? What's going on? My Mendo is. I was working on my Mendo for the Canto Bite 100th to leave my voicemail in there. I'm just getting nowhere, which is crazy because it's a pretty, Anyway, so enough about that.
Mendo
can
would
weave
come
into
back.
the story? Surely he could weave him into the story.
See, I've had in my head canon for a little bit that, not only would it be the story of Cassian and his adventures, but I think even just the lead up to Rogue One. Like we see some more of Gale and Urso on the base, building things, making the friendship with Bodhi. Yep. And then, yes, we'd see some of Krennic in there.
I feel like it almost might be like a end of season sting. You know what I mean? Like they get through the whole season and it's just like, all right, we saved the day. And then, the report comes through going, sir, the rebels got away. And then it's Mendo just like, those bloody rebels or something, like he's the cliffhanger.
Stone the bloody crows.
Yeah. Oh, bloody, I can't do it. I'm going to work on it. Like he would be the cliffhanger at the end of a season 1 of Cassian. Like, hey, we're going to bring Krennic into the next series. The rebels are getting too close. They're getting information, getting too close to our project. So yeah, I think so. He's obviously in Marvel stuff now too, Ben Mendelsohn. So he's down with Disney. So look, bring it on, please, by all means. Now, Mon Mothma.
I'd say it's a chance. She wouldn't be in every episode because obviously she's sort of the political leader.
Yep.
And depending when she sort of left the Republic,
it is sort of talked about in Rebels, I think, a little bit. I think she only sort of really outs herself as a total rebellion person right close to start to like A New Hope. You know what I mean? Like I think she's sort of, So I think you're right. Like I think I think she'd be talked about a lot. But whether she's actually in there giving all the orders and things, I think it'll be your General Dodana and the other dude kind of giving out the things. So it'd be good to see her back though. We always like seeing Mon Mothma, and now
definitely, I think it's the case of we've got the actress, we may as well use her, even if in some episodes it's just via hologram communication, and some episodes her in person there on base. So a bit of both.
Yep. All right. So Bail Organa. Jimmy Smits.
Space Jimmy Smits.
Surely we can lock in a Jimmy Smits.
Yeah.
And I guess, like you said, that does throw up questions about whether Leia is involved or not. But I think he'd definitely be up for it. He's happy to come back. He's quite a bridge between the two trilogies, isn't he? Really, that he sort of was a staple of the prequels and then turned up in Rogue One. I think it's there's not too many who have carried over with the same actors and things. Obviously, Mon Mothma a little bit, although I think she was just deleted scenes, I recall. I'm just trying to think who else is. Not too many have carried over. Is he the only? Has anybody else from the prequels carried over into other actors? I'm just trying to think. I mean, obviously Palpatine, if Palpatine's going to be in, he's carried through. Ian McDiarmid's carried through. So
Frank Oz with Yoda, but
that's true. Yeah, it's kind of,
but really, Bail Organa, like Space Jimmy Smits, is probably the most visible. And you're right, he's that bridge, like linking Rogue One and this Cassian show into the time frame,
and just the Republic in general into this war as well. Like he was a guy who was just a senator, and then involved in the war. Now, Darth Vader. Do they bring out Darth Vader again? Do you think they'll be able to help themselves?
I kind of hope they don't. That they sort of keep the powder keg dry for, Rogue One. That really you would only
like what would they be?
Him.
You sort of want if it's big scale stuff. You know what I mean? Like you kind of feel like you kind of want Cassian to be down the dirt doing the down and dirty missions and stuff. Like you wouldn't think that they would need Darth Vader to step in on any of this kind of stuff.
No, like he wouldn't be there for your everyday intelligence missions. I mean, Krennic only brought Vader in because he needed the big guns. This was a big deal. These are the plans of the Death Star, and that's why Vader got involved. Because otherwise, Vader's not, a
that
big
interested.
person. Well, no, he's not. He's not. He's sort of working in the shadows of the Empire, really.
Yep. Yep. So I don't know. I don't think the show needs it, but I feel like they might not be able to help themselves. So we'll.
My feeling is if they're going to have a force-powered or a dark force user, sorry, I've stuffed that up, it might be an Inquisitor if they have anyone.
If they have anything, yeah. Will they do that? We'll have to wait and see, I guess. Grand Moff Tarkin kind of feels like a Darth Vader-y thing as well. Like, obviously, it's hard to do. I mean, they've already kind of built the computer Grand Moff Tarkin, but doing it for TV is a different thing. Do you really need him? Do you go to all that trouble to have him in there when some other Imperial officer barking orders can probably do it just as well?
Ooh. He would only be there if Krennic was there and sort of a part of it, if we're following Krennic's side of the story.
Yep.
I think. Otherwise, you really would just have any other Imperial. Is this where we see a live action Thrawn?
Pierce Brosnan. When Pierce Brosnan comes out, and we've already called it, that he was staring us in the face all that time. All right, Saw Gerrera. Now, Forrest Whitaker's kind of up for it. Like, he was in the video game. He didn't seem like, even though he sort of got mucked around a bit in Rogue One, he seemed like he's still pretty happy to be involved in Star Wars. It would kind of work that he was he defected from the rebellion. He got a bit too extreme. It certainly would make sense that he would be the kind of person that Cassian would be hanging out with. Did he? I'm just trying to remember. They locked Cassian up though, didn't they? When he caught them. But yeah. I guess that doesn't necessarily mean anything, does it? He's just like, I know you. You stay in that cell, buddy, and I'll deal with you later.
So Saul did turn up in a couple of episodes of Rebels, where he was. The first one, anyway, he was loosely associated with the rebellion, but then he sort of went,
rogue.
He was starting to uncover the Kyber crystal shipments, and he was sort of breaking away from the rebellion then. But we should probably see more of what Saw did to be labelled too extreme for the rebellion. Yep.
I mean, that would be an episode where they send Cassian. It's like, hey, you got to bring Saw in. He's getting a little, like, we need you to go talk to him. He's getting a bit off kilter here. He's getting, we're not really happy with the way he's doing things. But yeah, I feel like he'd turn up. I don't think he'd do the whole thing, but I could definitely see a Saw Gerrera episode with Forrest Whitaker, Academy Award winning Forrest Whitaker. Now this sort of feeds into what you spoke about before, so we'll probably just breeze over Galen Erso. So that sort of ties in with the Mendo Chronicles.
Yeah.
The backstory there.
Yeah. I think it's kind of fascinating, what we see in Catalyst, the friendship between them and the relationship, and you sort of want to see it all building and how Galen sort of turned Bodhi to leave and get that message out.
Yeah, I think he'd be up for it, Mad Nicholson. So then we've got Baze and Chirrut. Hard to see them working plot-wise. As much as we like those guys, doesn't really seem like they have a place in the story until the point they come in, do they?
No, you can't really see how that would work. Unless you had story set on Jeddah City, you wouldn't see them, and it does make sense that all of a sudden their lives intersect at where they do, not before.
Yep. Bodhi Rook, we sort of touched on that a little bit. Do they show the relationship that he has with Galen and all that kind of stuff? I think it's possible. Would Riz Ahmed do it, perhaps? You think he's still happy with Star Wars? He was supposed to be at Celebration, and awful circumstances meant he wasn't, but he's definitely still happy to be involved, so I'd like to see more Bodhi Rook.
Yeah. I think I'd definitely like to see more of him, because we didn't see enough. I'd like to see a bit of his backstory. Why did he join the Empire? I mean, we can suppose that reasons, but we don't really know for sure, and what prompted him to leave.
Yep.
what was the push?
Now, before we get to the last one, honourable mentions, Melchi, the Scottish member of the rebellion. I think on the thing we kept going, is he British or is he Irish? I'm going, he's Scottish. Trust me, I've spoken to plenty of Scottish people. I know that accent a mile away. Very likely, I think, if he's part of his gang. So it'd be good to see him. Again, I don't have the actor's name in front of me, but always good to see him.
Yeah, I'd say that's a definite, because I think the two of them have worked together in the past. You can tell by the relationship. Yep, I think that would be a definite if we saw the Commandos.
Cool. All right, and last but not least, Jyn Erso. Are we gonna? How do you get Jyn Erso? Can you get Jyn Erso in there? Does it make sense? I mean, as much as it just feels weird that going all these people in here, could be in this series, but poor old the actual star of the film, there's no room for it. It's just because her story doesn't take off until then. But can you find a way to work Jyn Erso into this story? I guess if you go on Galen, but again, or Saw Gerrera, maybe.
Yeah, you'd have to flash back with Saw to when she was with Saw, and really see what she was doing then. Otherwise, who knows if it makes sense. She may have had interactions with the rebellion before.
Person of interest.
Yes, person of interest. Who knows? But
you almost want her to have her own spin-off on her own adventures or something, maybe. But I guess it depends on what she's been up to.
Yeah. It doesn't make very much sense to see her,
which is a bummer. But who knows? We've got Kevin. Kevin Feige came out and he was doing 10 Star Wars properties. There'd be the Jyn Erso show, and there'd be everybody on this list would probably have their own show. Great. Well, I think we've covered that. We've covered these predictions pretty good. I think we've uncovered some potential stuff that would be really cool, and we just don't know when this is. I mean, this is just. I decided to do this now because it popped into my head, because obviously I listened to the commentary and we were sort of predicting it, but we've got so little timelines, and so we just don't know. It's good to get it on wax and just see if we end up being right. Yes,
so don't hate us when we're wrong.
Yeah, save your emails, but we'll take the praise when you're right. We'll happily take the praise. Thanks so much, Catherine, for coming on as always. Always a pleasure to have you on. Now, let's talk Geek Pod. You guys have been dropping some sweet content. Dropped a Captain Marvel commentary the other day, I believe.
Yeah, so, me being me, we had to watch Captain Marvel again. That was good fun to record. So we recorded it with our good friend Dale, who's on It's True, All of It podcast, which is coming soon.
Yeah, he was on here sizzling that a few weeks ago.
And we've just recently dropped Stranger Things 3 sort of review and chat. And so I guess this weekend we'll be talking the 50 million Marvel things that are coming up into the future.
Hopefully I didn't dwell too much on that, because I didn't want to spoil your convo, but I think we found the balance there. You guys will go into much more detail. Because you guys aren't so pigeonholed into Star Wars like I am. Awesome. What about social stuff? Drop the socials.
So the podcast is on Twitter at ThatGeekPod, also on Insta and Facebook. I'm on Twitter at Catherine_Kneen. Yes, I have to go the underscore.
You should check that out again. I reckon somebody might have slipped, dropped their bundle or something. Have you checked out who the other Catherine Kneen is?
Yeah, they've tweeted like twice.
Damn them to hell. You can find our stuff at StarWarsSpeltOut.com. We've got some more t-shirts, the football mashup ones. We've just did a Western Bulldogs one, which has actually sold really well. A lot of people jumped on that, which is good. We've got another one that should be dropping this weekend, which will be a Melbourne Football Club one. We've updated the Essendon one as well to be closer to the original design. So the old design is Celebration exclusive. That's my way of getting around people who bought it already. Sorry, Catherine and Chris Fresh, and myself and a few others. And also we've got the Lando Utah Jazz one and the Minnesota Vikings Obi-Wan one as well, sort of requested by our friends Jess and Dallas respectively. And so thanks a lot, Catherine.
Oh, thanks, Josh. It's always fun being on here, talking some wars.
Always good. And we'll come back and we'll check in and we'll see how right we are.
We're going to be right.
Definitely. All right, see you later.
Bye.